Great moments are born from great opportunity. And that's what you have here tonight, boys.
I'm talking about we're beaten.
We're not beaten.
I'm not beaten. We're in this game. Anybody here tired?
No.
Sonny,
Not tired.
Holt,
I'm just warming up, Sheriff.
Connor,
I'm ready, John.
Bertie, you with us?
Yep.
Good. Because the Rangers are starting to breathe through their mouths. The strides are getting shorter. Do not give these guys too much respect. They didn't pull a dog sled, did they?
No.
Didn't skate the river, did they?
No.
This is our pond.
Now Cameron Hughes gets the ran over the line. Clean pass for Morrison across. The shot, they score! Ryan Winterton and the Firebirds take the lead. 6:08 to go in the first period. Logan Morrison right up the tape for Winterton. And Coachella Valley out in front for the first time in the series.
You know they just want you to bleed, right? I'm here to do whatever they need me to do. You know, if they need me to bleed, then I'll bleed for my team.
Let's go. Pretty boy. Let's go.
Introduce yourself.
Jim. My name's also Jim.
Problem solved.
Thanks, James.
Now, as far as serving the tendy goes, if they're shooting, you're getting your body in front of it. Everybody blocking shots. All you useless guys, blocking shots, bugging Appledorns. Now everybody knows the role. Eh, Sanguinette?
Everyone knows the role. Everyone does their job.
Yeah, so.
For Parsonen, McCormick tries to jam it loose in front, comes to Del Gaizo, pass broken up, John Hayden coming in shorthanded, looking for the hat trick, Hayden's in, he scores! John Hayden, a shorthanded goal, the hat trick for Hayes, 1:57 left in the second period, and it's 5-1 Coachella Valley.
I want to win that championship tonight, but I want to win it clean. Old-time hockey. Like when I got started, you know? Peters, Toe Blake, Dick Clapper, Eddie Shore, those guys were the greats.
Reg is our coach. Yeah, sure, old-time hockey. Like Eddie Shore.
Yeah.
Coach, our line starts.
Sure.
You were born to be hockey players. Every one of you. And you were meant to be here tonight. This is your time.
Greetings, friends and Firebirds fans, and welcome to the Season 3 debut episode of the Fire and Ice podcast. Fire and Ice, the official podcast of your Coachella Valley Firebirds of the American Hockey League. Coming to you from Palm Desert, California, I'm your Derek Laxdal whiteboard away from the Birds' home ice of Acrisure Arena. I'm your host, Judd Spicer, along with, again, having the privilege and the pleasure of this bi-monthly endeavor. Will again be serving as your Firebirds Insider for this third season of CV Hockey. Those Firebirds Insider articles may be found, as with everything CV Firebirds, online at cvfirebirds.com. That's your hockey home and your hub for everything from tickets, schedule, roster, community information, and much, much more. Per the presenting sponsor of this endeavor, Desert Willow Golf Resort. Get those tee times online for the Mountain View and Firecliff courses, respectively, at desertwillow.com. A mere 3+ miles away from the Birds' home ice of Acrisure Arena. You know, friends, I love a good segue. Make it a great putt-to-puck day. Getting you around at Desert Willow before sliding it on over to Acrisure Arena for a Birds game. And per our desert vernacular, it is overseed season. You want to be mindful of that when making tee times at Desert Willow Golf Resort. Currently, the Firecliff course is open for play, while the Mountain View, along with the practice facilities, undergoing overseed. Oh, per that Firecliff, by the way, just reopened after an awesome renovation, which yours truly experienced in recent days. Redo of the greens, redo of all the tee boxes, new turf on those greens. They've gone to Mini Verde. I was totally impressed. Couple new looks for those that have spent a lot of time over at Desert Willow, maybe for some of those snowbird listeners that make the annual trek yonder Coachella Valley. Come the winter season, you're going to notice a few new things, a few new looks when you take on the Firecliff course during this peak season. All right, friends. So enthused to be back for Season 3 of the Fire and Ice podcast. Joining me on this episode, along with a good segue, like that continuity. He was my first guest from last season, first guest for this season. Troy Bodie, the VP of hockey and business operations for the Firebirds, going to be joining me here shortly. Before we get to that, let's take a broad look at the season to be, if we may, for our Firebirds freeze frame segment. New season, new coach, new assistant coach, new players, new opener, as you may have noticed, to this podcast. Hope I don't get any copyright complaints, letters, or emails. We will see. As we're going to discuss with Troy here shortly, the roster, as many of us now well know, has undergone some changes heading into this third season for our two-time defending Western Conference champions. Not going to call it a facelift, because that would be inaccurate. Let's put it this way. Of the 20 players who last dressed for the Birds, the 20 players who dressed for Game 6 of the Calder Cup Championship Finals, well, 11 of those players are back on the Birds roster. Let's go over them briefly. Cale Fleury, Luke Henman, John Hayden is back. The captain, Max McCormick, back as a CV Firebird. Defenseman Gustav Olofsson, young Ryan Winterton is back. Young speedster Leighton Road is back. Jacob Melanson, he returns. Logan Morrison, he returns. Defenseman Viliata Vainen, he is back in a CB sweater, as is netminder Alish Stezka. Combined with those gents, there are three more fellows with whom we've become readily familiar. Did not dress in that Game 6, but they are also back on the Firebirds roster for this 24-25 season. Ian McKinnon, we welcome him back for his third season as a Bird. Yanni Newman, he is back with Firebirds this season, as is young forward Tucker Robertson. This collection of talented gents, of course, is now pairing with a host of free agent signings. We're going to get to those pieces and those gentlemen here shortly, again, when we speak with Troy. In addition, we've got a host of young talent that is going to be making their respective CB Firebird debuts this Friday night. This is a good segue to the schedule and a broad look at the schedule for this third season of Firebirds hockey. Season opener this Friday night, October 11th, at home versus Bakersfield. Going to unveil that second consecutive Western Conference Championship banner. And at the same time, if you want to head there early, 4:45 for the opening night red carpet. Watch some of these dudes that I just mentioned come out in suits before they get into their hockey gear, take some pictures. Good, fun fan event. That does serve as one of 17 theme nights across the Birds' 36 regular season home games that they'll have this season. Another great job by this team's marketing crew. 17 different theme nights. You can find that theme night schedule again online at cbfirebirds.com. All right, as we know, as we've learned, the AHL season, as wont to do, it starts pretty mellow. It starts pretty slow. To wit, Birds are going to be playing just 5 collective games in October. 3 of those games are home games, again starting with the opener this Friday night, the 11th, versus Bakersfield. Then we hold off a little bit until Wednesday the 16th versus Calgary at home. Third and final home game of October, Friday the 25th. That is a 7 p.m. puck drop versus our friends from Ontario. All told, those 3 October games are going to be followed by 4 home games in November. Again, pretty mellow start to the season for the home games. We should get used to that. That's how the AHL rolls. As a matter of fact, between October 25th and November 19th, there is just 1 home game. Fear not, the schedule picks up with alacrity after that. December is going to sport 9 Firebirds home games at Acrisure Arena. That is the most of any month. while January is the second most, 7 home games for the Firebirds over at Acrisure. Cumulatively, there's going to be 16 home games in a mere 57 days between the onset of December and the close of January. February is going to offer 5 home games, and of course, let us not forget, on February 2 and 3, the Coachella Valley and Acrisure Arena, home and host of this season's AHL All-Star Classic. Those individual game and experience tickets will be on sale soon. Of course, for seasonal membership and season ticket holder members, those All-Star Classic tickets come with your package. March is going to follow up with a mere 3 home games before the Birds close out this campaign with 5 home games in the month of April. All right, Flock. A lot of excitement abounds for this third season as we are now on the precipice of it, and probably an interesting collection of emotions as well. Maybe a little bit of curiosity, maybe a little bit of lament for those with long memories about how the season ended the last 2 years. Well, from this perch, I say let's put all these emotions together. Let's wrap it all up into one ball of enthusiasm and excitement, as it's going to be a cool season, this third year of CV Firebirds hockey. Got some new players, some very established players, some returning players, some fan favorites, and certainly some young stud prospects that a great many of us, certainly myself included, have long looked forward to seeing in person over at Acrisure Arena. To discuss this and much, much more, let's get to this episode's visit with our guest, Troy Bodie. He's the VP of Hockey and Business Operations for your Coachella Valley Firebirds. All right, Firebirds friends, as prefaced at the onset of this episode of the Fire and Ice podcast, pleased to welcome, or I should say welcome back, one of, if not the architect of our back-to-back Western Conference championships. He's the VP of Hockey and Business Operations for our Firebirds. Welcome, Troy Bodie, back to the Fire and Ice podcast. Hello, Troy.
Hello, Judd.
Well, while I'm tempted to spend a good portion of this visit giving you a blow-by-blow of the Arctic Chokes Adult C Championship, won in double overtime at the Burger Community Iceplex. I know I did tell you we were in the championship and we did win in double OT. There are other things to cover. There is more business at hand, I realize, as we are on the precipice of season number 3 of Firebirds hockey. We know about the success to date. When we get to this point in the season, the opener is days ahead, whether you're going back to your days as a player even, or your time in the front office now, how do you feel generally right before a season starts?
Yeah, I mean, you're always confident going into this season. You've worked hard all summer. You see the players in training camp, and everyone comes to camp in good shape, and you always feel like you've put something, a good product together. But as they always say in hockey and in sports, you still have to play the games, and everything can look good on paper or whatever, but at the end of the games, they'll tell you if it's a good team or not. But I'm pretty confident with what's been put together here, and we're ready to go Friday night.
And soon enough, we'll get to what you put together here as far as the roster and the players. Let me additionally ask first, do you feel like we're turning a page? We've got a new head coach, new assistant coach. Hell, we've got a new video coach. About half the roster is new. Had great 2 years of Firebirds hockey in our brief and brilliant existence. But does it feel like to you now, with some of this different personnel, some of the different staff, that the Firebirds are now turning a page a bit?
Yeah, you know what? It's not uncommon. We have some turnover at the American Hockey League level, and that's, we've seen it in terms of the on ice players in the last 2 years, but this is the first time we've really had personnel change in the coaches and whatnot. But having Dan going up to the NHL, Jessica along with him is something we're very proud of, and I wish him nothing but the best of luck there. And I'm very happy to have Derek Laxstall in there, leading us here. He's an accomplished coach. He's he's won at this level. He's a very, very good coach in terms of, developing players I'm very confident where we are there. And then bringing in Brendan Sone to help out Stu Bickle, both of them as assistant coaches. He's a up and coming coach out of the Western Hockey League, and we're excited to have him, running the power play and the forwards and whatnot. And again, good having some familiarity with Stu and Colin coming back as well. They're, it's really good for, Coach Lax and Sone to have some familiarity in there. And I feel really good about where we are.
That begs a few follow-ups. Let's start with your mention of Dan Bilesma and Jessica Campbell, for that matter, as opposed to, say, and this is even a hypothetical, had the Kraken hired someone outside of the organization, would that have made your job tougher? Are we seeing, does it enable you to have more continuity now between, over the course of the season? There's going to be back and forth. Guys are going to be called up. Guys are going to be sent down. That's how it works. Is it helpful for you to have that continuity within the entire organization with those two on the Kraken bench?
Well, certainly. It was a fun training camp, getting to see them up there. And, for those who know Dan, like I do, he is full of energy and it's all day, every day. And I didn't know he had another level to it, but he did up there, and he's just so excited to get going. Just to see that energy is very exciting, and it's good having, that familiarity with him up there, and then Jessica as well. They work so well together, as a team, and I think they're going to have good success with them up there. So it does make it a lot easier for me. Just, I know Dan, I know what he likes. If he needs a player, I kind of know what he might be looking for, but it does make it a little bit easier, but at the same time, we're worried about down here. So.
Sure. And per down here, and our new head coach, Derek Laxdal, soon to make his Acrisure Arena debut this Friday, October 11th at home versus Bakerfield. You and I have talked about Coach Laxdal a few times after he was the hire, namely for the Desert Magazine article, which is on newsstands now, the October issue. You told me basically at that time, right after you hired him, how he jumped out in the interview process. And then I know that all we media types had opportunity to go back through his history and find out how much success he has had at all these different levels and all these different leagues. What have you seen or learned about Derek Laxdal in the couple of months since, Troy?
The one thing I think is jumps out, right away. He's a very good developer. He's right away. He's talking about our young players and what he can do to get them up to speed at our level. We've got some good young prospects here. Jagger Furcus and, Edward Chalet and David Goyette and Ty Nelson, Yanni Neiman. I can go on. And he's just, it's like he's very excited to have the challenge of working with these young players. It's, in some ways, it's like an artist getting a blank canvas but he's got all the tools to work with. And, he's really excited to get going there. And then obviously having some good veteran players coming back, and, our leaders from last year with Max McCormick and John Hayden up front, and Cale Fleury, Gustav Olofsson in the back end, and then bringing in some other veterans from around the league, and, Mitchell Stevens and Ben Myers, Brennan Bureau. And then obviously the familiarity with Stezka coming back as well. It's a really good mix. And, Derek's just very excited to get going with all this to work with.
Yeah, and certainly get again to that roster momentarily here in a little more detail. Let me ask you first here, Troy. I'm always interested in how the organization, from a coaching staff, from an administrative, from a front office perspective, if those people and those personalities kind of trickle down to the tenor of a team, how a team is made up. And it's just kind of caught my attention that you, from your playing style, from your playing days,
to Stu Bickle, not afraid to get in a few scraps. New coach Brendan Sawney, not afraid to get in a few rumbles. Derek Laxdal, he's a big guy. He had a history in his playing days of being a tough competitor. In the past 2 years, not in any way saying that the Firebirds did not have some rough and tumble and some muscle and hustle to the style. But given how you guys are made up now, just from a coaching staff, from a front office perspective, it does make me wonder, in concert with some of the new personnel we brought on, some of the guys we saw last year, if the style of play may trickle down to be a little different look on the ice this year.
I mean, I think you always want to be as competitive as possible. And, the physicality of the game is certainly part of that. I don't know if the playing style is going to be any more than just competing hard for pucks or anything like that. There's obviously, fights in the game and whatnot, but, last I checked, the fights don't put any points on the board. You have to put the puck in the net. So that is the main focus, keep putting the puck in the net and keeping it out. But yeah, we do have some big guys on our staff. That's for sure.
Friends, you're tuning in to the season 3 debut episode of the Fire and Ice podcast. My guest is Troy Bodie. Program is presented by Desert Willow Golf Resort. All right, I'm going to throw a bunch of names at you, Troy. We got a bunch of new faces, combination of young prospects that we look forward to seeing in Palm Desert for several years now, and a list of free agents. I'm going to start with the young guys first. You already mentioned the gentleman they referred to as the Circus, the Furcus Circus. Just 20 years old. He's got red hair. Need to mention that. Forward Jagger Furcus. The stats from the major juniors, I mean, they're insane, man. They just blow off the screen or the charts. I'm not like a TikTok guy or the TikTok generation, but I'm smart enough to punch his name into YouTube. And I suggest that those who haven't done so, listeners, type in the Jagger Furcus name into the YouTube search engine and see what comes up in some of the amazing highlights. As far as the stats, I mean, last year alone, this guy, 83 games, 158 points. That is not a misprint. 375 points in his career with Moose Jaw of the WAHL. Fast guy, young guy, big prospect, not a big guy. What do you expect to see as he adjusts to the AHL this year?
Yeah, obviously the stats jump off the page when you look at Jagger. He's a second-round draft pick of the Kraken and spent 2 years there, led the Canadian Hockey League in scoring, which, for our listeners who don't understand or don't know those leagues that well, there's about 60 teams that make up the 3 leagues in the Canadian Hockey League. So 20 players on the team, you can do the math and just how good and how dominant his season was. Like you said, he's not a very, very big guy, but he's got an absolute rocket of a shot. Very smart hockey player. He's got some grit to his game. He's very much a skilled player, but he'll certainly be part of the offense this year. And I don't expect him to have too much of a feeling out period. He's a guy that could probably jump in and score right away.
A mere 19 years old, Edward Chalet, the Czech. He was the 20th overall pick of the 2023 draft. Don't want to get too deep into the weeds with this, Troy, but essentially, and clarify if I'm wrong, he's able to come to the AHL because he was drafted out of Europe. Is that accurate?
That is actually very accurate. So,
okay.
It's when you play at the major junior league level and you drafted out of there, you can't join the Firebirds until you're 20 years old. Not the same for players that are drafted while they were still in the European level. So we're happy to have Edward to come in. He's a first round draft pick. He's got a lot of talent, and we'll see how we can get him going here with us. So yeah, still a young kid,
still a young guy. Let's stick with the frontliners. David Goyette, also just amazing success in the major junior league. 256 cumulative points, including 127 and 77 games last year. Again, just 20 years old. What have you seen from David thus far that think he can contribute to the Birds this year?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about Jagger Firkus being the first in the Canadian Hockey League. Well, David was second, so we've got the 1 and 2 combo here. So a lot of talent here. He's another guy, a lot like Firkus. I'd say he's got less of a shot, and he's more of a playmaker and competitive guy. Can definitely put the puck in the net, can make plays, and he kind of brings it all. But I'd say he's a lot more, grit and kind of toughness to his game. Not afraid to get scrappy as well. So there's a lot there's a lot to uncover with David's game, and it's a big jump from junior for all these young guys. But I think he's a guy that can really help us right away as well.
As far as the young guys, lastly here, moving to the blue line, I think this dude is going to become an instant fan favorite. 3rd-round pick of the Kraken in 2022, also just 20 years old, 5'10", about 200 pounds, built like a total brick wall. Ty Nelson, I think, is really going to jump out to Firebirds fans at the onset of this year.
Yeah, built like a brick wall is a good way to describe him. He's he's a guy that has a lot of energy out there, and I agree he'll be a fan favorite because he's all over the ice in a good way. If someone comes near him with the puck, he's going to go in there and get a piece from him and try to get the puck back. But he's up the ice. He's very much willing to shoot from the blue line and will join the rush, get involved in the offense. But very much a two-way defender. I think he's going to be a good player for us moving forward.
Let's move to some of the free agents that we'll get to know as we delve into Firebird season number 3. I told you that I was fond of this guy right when you signed him. Maybe it's my Minnesota bias, 25-year-old forward Ben Myers, Minnesota native, former captain of the Golden Gophers, where he was a Hobey Baker finalist. Jumped out of college real quick to the NHL, man. Ultimately, 67 NHL games, combined with 62 games in the AHL. We got to see his game a fair amount when he was with the Colorado Eagles. Just a smart player. I was really impressed with his spacing, his ice knowledge. You could tell that he was a guy that knew to be at the right places at the right time. And when he was with Colorado, he was tough on the Birds. I'm glad he's on our side now.
Yeah, and one of those guys you want on your team and not having to play against them. But, Ben is a bit of an older prospect, but still very much a developing prospect for us. We're excited to have him with us. He's a guy, he likes to have the puck on his stick, likes to have his head up, and, he's very much a transporter of the puck and can make a lot of things happen just with his speed and his skating, but plays both ends of the rink, he's, like I said, he's an older guy in terms of, some of these younger players here, but very much going to be a top line type player for us.
You mentioned the name Mitchell Stevens, 27-year-old center. A lot of time in the NHL, played about half his season with Montreal last year. What can we expect out of Mitchell?
Yeah, Mitchell's a good two-way player that we're excited to have. We didn't know how this is going to shake out at a training camp, obviously, with him having so much NHL experience, but he's a center who's great on the face-off, really defensively responsible, great penalty killer, but can also play the power play. Real crafty guy. I was really impressed with his training camp up in Seattle with all the plays he made while still being a very responsible player. He'll be a top player for us this year as well.
A couple of veteran free agent defensemen that you brought in, Nicholas Brouillard, not necessarily the biggest guy in stature, but he brings some big attitude to the ice. Got a lot of penalty minutes in his time in the AHL, 416 all told. He's a guy that we saw a couple of years ago when he was with Seattle. Just another guy, kind of as I referenced, that I think is going to bring this toughness and maybe some added physicality to the Firebirds this season.
Yeah, like you said, he's not the biggest guy, but we saw him a lot in San Diego in year one of the Firebirds, and he gave us fits. Another guy we'd rather play with than against. Offensive guy, likes to get up the ice, skates well with the puck, but very, defensively sound and hard to play against. He's a guy I think everyone's going to enjoy watching, just with the amount of time he wants to have the puck on his stick and enjoying the offense, and very, very dynamic type defenseman.
We already had a Max on our team, but now we've added a second in Max, or Maxime Lajoie. Great hockey name. AHL veteran. Has also played 77 games in the National Hockey League. Won a championship while playing with our old friend Andrew Podorowski while with the Chicago Wolves. Now with his fourth AHL team, I want to say in the last 6 years. Veteran AHL player, seems like another nice veteran addition.
Yes, that's exactly it. He's been around the league for a while. Another good puck moving, puck skating defenseman that can help us on the power play, but still defends very hard. He's a good sized kid. I think there's still a lot to uncover in his game in terms of his NHL potential. We're really happy with his camp up in Seattle, but he's going to be a good addition for us here.
Just briefly to finish off with the netminders, you mentioned Alish Stejka. Alish got really, really good as the year went on last season. Ultimately, 18-6, 2-2 between the pipes last year. Detroit, his last 15 games, he was 12-2-1. He essentially just got better and better every week throughout the course of last year's season. Did not get to time in the postseason, but nonetheless, he seems like he is ready to be the starter full-time for the Birds. That is coupled with what some considered maybe a little bit of a surprise roster move. Young 20-year-old prospect Nike Koko. He is going to be our backup netminder, it would appear, as the season gets underway. What would you say about the Firebirds and net cumulatively between those two guys as the season starts?
Yeah, it's a good tandem. Like you said, Alice, started off the season a little slow, just making his, understanding and figure out the North American hockey, which is not that easy. It's smaller ice surface and the game's a little bit different, but man, he was a quick study. And by the time we got going in the new year, he seemed like he couldn't lose. And he's really put himself on the map to be a potential NHL goalie at some point. And he'll be a big part of that tandem. But, Nike Koko is a good young prospect for us, a second-round draft pick. He's come right in with a ton of confidence. Did really well in the Finnish Elite League last year, having been traded mid-season and then coming back and beating his old team to get to the finals. And he's a good young prospect, and he'll give us some good games for sure.
Close with this, Troy. Just looking at this roster cumulatively, what essentially happened with the final cuts for the Kraken, when looking at the fact that we, I guess, got some of these young prospects that we weren't necessarily sure were going to be with the Firebirds, namely Chalet. It's an interesting roster. It's an exciting roster. It's different from the last couple of years, where you essentially have combined this tapestry of all the levels. We've got these 19, 20-year-old guys, these prospects we're excited about seeing for the first time. We've got the younger guys that really established themselves in the AHL last year, from Ryan Winterton, Jacob Melanson, Morrison. And then we've got the return players, the veterans that we're so fortunate to still have with us, ranging from Max McCormick, John Hayden, Ian McKinnon, Luke Henman. It's an interesting tapestry that you put together, and from the get, it looks like it's going to be a really fun season, man.
Yeah, it really is. And, we've got these young players that are coming in all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed from junior. And I think you need some of the veteran players to really surround them and support them, mentor them as they develop here. So, yeah, I think it's a good mix, top to bottom, forward D, goaltending. Really happy how things turned out. I'm with you. I was surprised that we got all these players back from the Kraken. So it's a very, very good lineup. And like I said, we still have to play the games. So, but it'll be a good one Friday night, and I hope to see everyone there.
Well, I will certainly look forward to seeing you at the Birds Barn on Friday, October 11th. Home opener versus the Bakersfield Condors. Troy, always a pleasure, man. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
All right, Firebirds flock, it's going to wrap it up for this Season 3 debut episode of the Fire and Ice podcast, presented by Desert Willow Golf Resort. So appreciative of your time, your interest, your ears, your ongoing support for this endeavor. Equally appreciative for the time of Birds VP of Hockey and Business Operations, Troy Bodie. Always a pleasure chatting with Troy. Desert Willow Golf Resort, presenting sponsor of this podcast. You can find them online at desertwillow.com. Get those tee times for the Mountain View and Firecliff courses respectively. When you're poking around at Desert Willow, also be sure to check out the awesome and on-site Palm Desert Golf Academy. Again, don't forget, we're in October. It is overseed season. So right now you can get those tee times for the recently renovated Firecliff course. Again, had recent opportunity to go check that out in person for a weekend round, and it's awesome. Redone greens, redone tee boxes, new grass on those greens, went to the Mini Verde. Trust me, you're not going to be disappointed with your putt-to-puck day. Get those tee times again online at desertwillow.com. So very enthused, friends, for what is going to be an interesting and I truly believe exciting season number 3 of Firebirds hockey ahead. Don't forget to check out all things Coachella Valley Firebirds, including team, roster, tickets, community information. Find that online at cvfirebirds.com. But I also suggest, if I didn't mention as much before, downloading that handy CV Firebirds app. Great way to get tickets for all things happening with your favorite hockey team, along with all the events taking place at Acrisure Arena. Very much look forward to seeing you this Friday night. That is this Friday, October 11th, as Season 3 gets underway with the Birds home opener Friday, October 11th versus the Bakersfield Condors. Let's make it a great season, friends. Appreciate you tuning in. And remember, as always, one valley, one team, rising together.